What is going on, guys? It's Dave Haas here with the Rise Up Rich podcast. And because we had such an amazing response to the last episode that we did with Tony Smith in the Garage Gym, I decided to bring him back. Him and I are going to dig in a little bit deeper into a few other concepts that I think are going to deliver a ton of value to everyone that's listening. But also, Tony's got this amazing event that's coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and how you can get involved and how you can help out, and what's happening with that. So, Tony, thanks for coming back. Let's just talk first about like some of the responses that you got from the last podcast, because I know I had a bunch of people reach out to me and they were super inspired by what you had to say. So just talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into it.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate being back. It was fun last time. We're looking forward to this one today. So yeah, last time we got so much response. I got so much feedback. People were super inspired in their own ways, right, about how they're going to make some little changes in their lives to focus on passion rather than the security. And just, we actually had somebody quit their job and move into another field, which was, I was like, I hope you measured everything out before you did that. You didn't just go based off everything I said. But putting plans in place and just taking action rather than just having dreams, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're really hitting the nail on the head with a lot of points last time. That it's like really, it's about like you got to have that energy, you got to have that passion behind what you're doing, and if you're not feeling that passion for life, then you need to relook at your life. If you're working for the weekend, then you need to figure out how you can make every day your weekend kind of thing. This isn't about like laying on a beach and relaxing, and Tony and I are going to dig into that a little bit today, a little bit more about like what really truly makes us happy. But one of the key factors for me to like kind of breaking free from this world of scarcity that I used to live in, where I never had enough money. I just felt like nothing was going right for me. I had this mindset of like, when am I going to catch a break? Like, why can't I make the money that I see other people making? I was comparing myself, and there's a bunch of issues that led me, that were creating my reality in that point, in that place I was. But one of the things that really helped me move out of that place of scarcity and start moving into this place of abundance was this idea around giving. There's a saying that says, it is in giving that we receive, and everybody hears that. Everyone hears that. They say, oh, you got to give, But the more books I was reading, and I read hundreds of books. I read like, a book a week. Well, I don't read, I should say. I listen to books, like about a book a week on Audible. And, so I just kept on hearing this thing, like, you got to give, you got to give more, you got to give more. And my mentality always was like, I need someone to give to me back in the day. Like, cause like I was just in this place where I just felt like money was scarce. And if I gave my money away, I was never going to come back to me. But because I just heard it, and this is like one of the lessons I teach in Rise Up Rich, is repetition. Sometimes you might need to hear something 100 times before it finally sinks in. So on the 100th time, if you want to say, I heard it and I said, you know what? I'm going to put this giving thing to the test and see if it actually works. Because what I was reading was that the more you give, the more you receive. And not only do you receive the same that you gave, you receive like 10 times more. And so I started putting it into place. I came up with this really cheesy idea, but basically every time I went to a grocery store and every time I went to anywhere and they asked me for the $2 donation, I gave it. And that act started loosening my grip on money. I was no longer believing that if I gave this $2 away, it wasn't going to come back to me. So I started seeing some changes in my mindset around money. But then the next thing I started doing was I started implementing it into my business. I started figuring out how I could give more to my employees, how I could give more to my customers. And just as I was coming to this concept, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission in the bar business, they changed the rule in that you were actually allowed to give away booze. Believe it or not, before a couple of years ago, you weren't allowed to. Like, you came into my bar, I couldn't buy you a beer, which was like, is this ridiculous? But they finally changed the rule. So once they changed that rule, I started just buying people drinks, like good customers. I would buy them a drink, and I would make it a point when I was in there to say, hey, like, let me buy you a drink, let me buy you a menu item, and I started giving away, I don't know, let's say it was $100 of booze, free drinks a weekend to good customers. And then the old me would have been like, well, that's $100 a week times 2 days a week, it's $200 a week, times 52 weeks. It's like I would have started putting all the numbers together and thinking about how much money I was losing. But what happened because of this one little shift from trying to get and shifting to trying to give, my business like just increased so much, and I was just getting like so much amazing feedback. I was building better relationships with my customers, and I received, like I say, tenfold. That $200 a week I was spending giving to my customers, translated into like $300,000 or $400,000 extra in sales at the end of the year, and I was just dumbfounded. And that's when I knew, I'm like, this is one of the keys. Like, this is one of the things that people are not getting. They're not, one of the concepts they're not grasping is that in order to give, you have to receive. And if you apply that to the real basic principles of business, which is, what are you offering to your customers? What kind of value are you providing to your customers? What are you giving to your customers? That's the ultimate goal of business. It's not about to create an idea that's going to make you money. It's about to fill a void in the market. What can I give to my customers so that they think they're getting, they really believe they get this 10 times value for the price that they're paying. And once you change your mindset, that's when everything changes. And I know you at the Garage Gym have always had that mentality. And like you even said in the last podcast, which I thought was really cool, that one of the main goals when you opened up Garage Gym was to be involved in the community and giving back. And I just want you to talk about some of the things that you've done with the community, but let's flip it a little bit too, and like talk about some of the positives that came, because people like to be humble, right? They like to be like, we did this, and and they don't like to talk about all the good that came from it. But this is what I'm trying to break through here. I'm trying to break through this barrier, because I think that's one of the problems with this giving. It is in giving that you receive concept, is that once you give and then you start receiving, you don't want to talk about it. You're kind of like want to hide it, because it almost feels wrong that you're getting 10 times of what you give, right? So, my whole entire life, my whole entire business here at Rise Up Rich is about giving. And I know that if I continue to give, people are I'm going to receive 10 times, and I want to talk more about that. So why don't you just talk a little bit about that, about some of the events that you had, and that will lead into us talking about the upcoming event.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. I was just a guest speaker on a business. It's called The Business of Strength. It's a podcast. They have their own podcast, but I was doing their small group, their peer meetings. And one of the things I presented about was an event that we run for our members. It's not a charity event. It's called the Garage Gym Games. And one of the questions from one of the other speakers was, well, what do you expect to profit from running this? And the answer was, no, actually, we fully expect to lose a couple $1,000s every year when we run this program. And point being, these people pay us a ton of money, and I'm going to give them more than they deserve. And that's why we run those games. And even part of to this day, in our yearly meeting, we have a bunch of goals. I'm sure you do the same in the bar business, and so many of the other listeners will do the same. So we have a yearly meeting, and we set out our goals. One of our goals is to run minimum 2 major charity events and 2 minor charity events. So major being, in the past, we've done a row for cancer. We partnered with the brewery Geo Heritage, and we were able to raise over $40,000. We did the Special Olympics this year, raised $12,000, and then put on their, in addition to, we then put on their Special Olympics qualifier meet for weightlifting. We did an event called the Lift for Loss, and that was a young boy who has his whole family. He was ill, still is very ill, and his family was going through some hardships. They bought a new house, found out the house was invested in mold. We were able to come together as a community of Amherstburg and Kingsville and raise another $40,000 and hand that over to that family in cash. So those events, they ring so close to the heart for you. I can't even describe it. I've said this so many times in other different media sources that I was a police officer for 20 years, and I have actually saved lives. And the only thing that compares is that it's handing over some money or something to somebody who truly, truly needs it, and seeing how happy they are to receive it.
Yeah, and I think that's another aspect. When I was talking about the actual monetary things that you get from giving, but there's also this thing that is a million times more important, which is seeing the face on the person that you're actually helping. And for me, in the coaching aspect, it's when I'm coaching someone and they have that aha moment when they finally oh, I get it. And it's like you can just feel like it's energy. It flows through your body, and that's like there's no better gift in the world. Like I wouldn't trade that for $1,000,000. You know, like that feeling of like I know that I just impacted this person's life because they finally have understood the concept that I'm trying to teach them, but also they understand it to a point where they're going to go and they're going to implement it. So I mean that's the other side of it for sure. But also like we'll talk about the business benefits that came from all of this. Like I remember like every time I opened up a freaking newspaper, it was like Tony Smith, the Garage Gym, does this, like, you know. So it's like you got a lot of recognition for those events that you did.
Yeah, those events got us so much recognition. It was really unimaginable. And even from like a smaller scale, I'll give you a great example for all the business owners listening. We have, you know me, I love to party. And even as long as you've known me, I've thrown a Christmas party for my friends and family. You just show up, you know, you bring whatever you like, but we're supplying whatever, you know, you drink, whatever you eat. And we took that concept to, just because I love Christmas and we love to give, to our members. We take our Visa reward points every year and in dollars, and then we just open up a tab. And everybody in the gym and their spouse is invited. We buy until the tab runs out. We did that totally for fun. It turns out to be the greatest party. But the next day I wake up and I open my social media, and you have a business account like me, you can see different things you don't see on your personal accounts. And we had like 827 mentions on Facebook and Instagram. I mean, you know how much money you'd have to spend we spend way more than that at the party, but I mean, that's like free advertising, I guess, without the intent was not there to do such, but like that was the result. We did a good thing. Next day you wake up to some good karma.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's that's the kind of like the walls I wanted to break down with this idea around giving, because no one's talking about all the good that comes from it, because they get to this place where they're humble, or they're almost like, but I mean, like, giving has been like one of the greatest things that's propelled my business forward, and it continues to propel my business forward. And until my competitors understand that, they're gonna be behind me, and and I'm saying that because I want them to get to this place where they're giving more, that when we're all giving, when we get to this place in this world where we're all giving, it's going to be an amazing place to live. And the benefits are they're just so insanely huge. It's not just monetary, but it's also like emotionally and spiritually, how it can completely lift you up and change your motivations for everything. So, and it's
addictive. Like, you
so
start
addictive
to do it, and then you just want to continue to do it. Now, a thing my wife and I do, when we go out for dinner, we don't make change. So, like, if the bill is $82 and we have $100, you get 18. That might be low on that tip thing, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, if we're gonna take it over to the next 20%, then I guess you're gonna get $120 for your $82 bill.
Yeah, right.
We're just not gonna wait and make change, and that especially now that you have my own employees. I was always used to working for the man, but now that I kind of am the man, you see how hard these people work and how much they do, and how the extra things to leave somebody an extra $5 or $10 tip, like, big deal, right?
Yeah, and that actually, we'll just kind of segue a little bit into that. I made a post the other day that I got a little pushback on it, and I think it's important to bring it up, because I think a lot of people that are listening are on two ends of the spectrum. There's people that do run their own businesses, but there are also people that work for other people. And the post said something like this. Well, it said this exactly, I think, was: ask not what your company can do for you, but what you can do for your company. And immediately all the people that were in this mindset that they were owed something, they're passing the blame, were kind of on me, and I got a little bit of pushback from it. And that whole idea goes both ways, though. And this is the mindset I changed in my business, was like, ask not what my employees can do for me, but what can I do for my employees? And once you change those two things on both ends of the spectrum, if you're an employee and you're able to basically say, what can I do to make this company better? You have that mindset where you're going to work every single day. That is not going to go unrecognized or unrewarded. It's just not going to happen. Any business owner is going to move that person up the ranks, is going to give them more pay, is going to make their lives better in some way, because they understand the value that person brings to the business. But vice versa, as an employer, you also have to ask, what can you do to make your employees' lives better? Because when your employees' lives are better, then your customers' lives are better ultimately. So I know that's like something that you guys have put into place at Garage Gym of like really just making sure that your team is like super sound.
Yeah, like our team, you wouldn't be able to recognize them as whether they're part of our family or part of our team at work. It's one and the same for us, and we really, really have gone into how can we make their lives better, realizing, you know, pay obviously is a great thing, but something in small business that we are truly honestly limited to. So we've had to look outside the box. So one thing we've done is our employees get unlimited vacation. So as long as we can make it work, they can have the day off, and they know that. And when in retrospect, or I guess in return, without us even asking, when we're gone away, or Danny had a little bout with the kids had the flu, they're just stepping up and they're just working without asking for anything back because they know what they're getting in the other end. We just last week, I've been having trouble lately unplugging a little bit. I've been real busy, a lot of things, probably too many projects on the go. And so I was starting to do yoga on Thursday mornings. It's just a good thing for me to stretch out. You know, I can't even touch my toes. Mm-hmm. But also it's just more so the yoga is 1 hour for me to just shut my brain off. And I was thinking, man, how much would my employees love that? So Danny and I went out, we bought the employees a package. So they're now able to go to yoga when they want on us. Just something for them to do to get out of the gym, shut their phones off, good for their bodies and their minds. So yeah, those are just some of the little things that we're doing. Incentivizing them, of course, giving them tons of responsibility. I really think that's something that a lot of employers miss and don't understand, is that they don't always just want more money. They just want to like get some credit and do some jobs without being micromanaged, and just let them do it. You Definitely. Oversee it, but let them do the work and let them, and then like I always say, you've heard me say this before, with your team, with your warriors, with whatever it is, you stand beside them in battle, in front of them in failure, and behind them in success. And that's what we really, really try to do.
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, I think that's so huge. So, I mean, the takeaway here is that it's in giving, that you receive. But I hope we kind of like broke that apart a little bit. So if you're an employee, I guarantee if you change your mindset about how you can make the company that you work for better, and how you can provide the most amount of value, that you're going to move up the ranks of that company. And if you don't move up the ranks of that company, someone else in another company is going to recognize it and probably steal you away. So it's like really about just delivering that amazing amount of value and just giving. Like I want to end all of this hiding behind walls of what you actually receive when you give, because it kind of goes, I guess it's a little bit backwards thinking, but like I know that giving is the most important thing to me, and that's where I do it all the time. My whole business is based around giving. So with that being said, you got this huge event coming up. Why don't you just take me through it and what's happening and how people can help and who's helping and all that stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to get this out there for everybody so we can get the more people involved, the better. So every year at the Garage Gym in November, we've called it Rowvember, like the rowing machines. We've always done something that's benefited some kind of charity. A few years ago, I mentioned we did one with Geo Heritage Brewing Company. So at the Geo Heritage Brewing site, right in there, we did a rowing event for cancer. The owners of Geo Heritage at the time, his father had been diagnosed with cancer. And right before the event, like I'm talking like 3-4 days before this giant event, their father actually passed away earlier than expected. And we didn't know if we were going to run the event. We didn't know what we were going to do because obviously the family was in mourning. And I got a phone call from the owners there, and they said, let's do this. And that day we raised $42,000 for cancer, doing a rowing marathon in a monsoon outside with tents. The water was flooding everywhere. You were there. Yeah. All of our friends came out to support. At the end of that thing, everybody was crying, and it was just such a great feeling. Well, fast forward 2 years, we've now spread the wealth with our charity work. Cancer Clinic Calls Back. Quida, who you probably know through social media, she's all over TV. She's a good friend of mine from going way back. Called and said, "Hey, we need your help. We need to raise about $70,000 to get to where we want to get to with this campaign. All of it stays local. What can you do?" And banged our heads together and just basically decided, like, you know what, man, we can't do this alone. Greg and I from Geo Heritage, and our families and his family. And we came up with this. We reached out. The Spits are getting behind us. And it's going to be November 17th at the WFCU, right on the ice rink there. They're going to cover it for us, obviously. We're going to put down, we invited all kinds of gyms, and we're going to have a rowing race. It's going to be teams of 20, and you get 2 rowers per team. They're going to relay on that for 2 hours straight. And it's going to be whoever raises the most money combined with the most meters in the race will receive the owner's suite donated by the owners of the Windsor Spitfires.
Oh, nice.
So that team will get the owner's suite. The next team that raises just the most money, we've got a prize for them. And the team that races for the most meters will also have a prize for them. The individual who raises the most money is going to get 4 Red Wings tickets. And we've also got a couple other surprises I don't want to blow.
Nice.
So we have Axel Films is going to be on hand filming this. We have a DJ, Nico's coming in to spin music while we compete. It's going to be a great thing. And you know what is crazy is that, I was kind of hesitant at first to reach out to all these other gyms because, not all of us, I don't even know all of them. We have different modalities. Customers go from me to them and from them to me. I just don't know how it was going to be received. So I sent out an email. We wanted to avoid the big franchises. I sent out an email to, I think, 9 gyms that I do or do not know the owners and just small gyms. And within 2 days, we had 8 gyms sign up.
That's
and most
amazing.
of those gyms are going to have multiple teams.
Amazing.
So I'd like to just give those guys a shout out. So it's all levels CrossFit Workhorse Lifestyle, the Shred Shop, ETS, which is the new gym over in McDougall that was opened up inside Kennedy. True Fitness, he's got a couple locations, one right by where we are right now.
Yeah.
AOG, they're like a traveling gym that meets in parks all over the place in different facilities. Brady's Fitness, which is just down the street from here, and then one from your hometown of Essex, Fury Training Grounds.
Oh, nice.
They're all hooking up with us.
Oh, right on.
And the breweries, that was the other part of this. So the event's going to be called Cruise and Brews. The breweries are going to be there too. So we're all going to be down on the ice rink, racing on the rowers, and surrounding us and like where the boards would be will be all the breweries.
Nice.
So it's going to be open to public. You can come in, just grab a beer. The breweries are all in there, non-profit. They're covering their expenses. But every single dollar raised, we're big on that. Every dollar raised, nobody profits off our events.
Nice.
Is going to go back and stay here in Windsor to help men with cancer. And one of the biggest problems that I don't think people realize with cancer in this area, obviously you hear about the healthcare and that, is that a lot of men have to go all the way to Hamilton and London to get the testing they need and the treatment they need. So they're already enduring cancer. They're, the stress of their families, not being, radiation, having to stay away from young kids and so on and so on. Now you got to go and stay in a hotel where you get your treatment up the highway. So that one hit home to me. Right now, my manager, Stephanie, her father's very, very ill with cancer. And if we could do something to make his life better, then all for this, because there's a million people just like him that need our help.
Definitely. And I think one thing to mention too about this event, like I went to the one over at Geo Heritage, and I wasn't rowing, but it was still like a ton of fun. Just it's a great community event, and even though I wasn't participating, actually once I was there, I was like, oh, I want to participate, but it was just still fun to be around the energy, and there's all kinds of prizes. I'm assuming you guys are doing door prizes and raffles again. So a person that's not rowing, how can they help out? How can they give to the event? Like a person like me, if I want to come, how am I helping out and giving back to the event?
Right. So every member who's going to actually sit on a rower and row needs to raise $100 in pledges to get onto a team. So you could, first of all, that's the easiest way. Just find somebody who wants to row. And by the way, I do have a spot for you if you want it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Find somebody who wants to row and pledge to them. And if you can't find somebody, reach out to me, Tony@thegaragegym.net. And I will get you signed up on somebody's pledge form. We will, in the next short while, have a link, and maybe I'll get you to post it for me on social media where people can donate through the internet, through e-transfers or PayPal or something like that. The cancer clinic's working on that for me. It's a little over my head. Or you could just come in and grab a beer, because we're going to be selling draft beers, overpriced draft beers, just like every stadium. Okay, but all the money is going to go back towards a charity. So on hand with the GL Heritage, we're also going to have Motorcraft Ales, Sandwich Brewing, the Banded Goose, Sons of Kent, Chapter 2, The Grove, and Frank's at least. Those are at the very least, those ones will be on hand. If you buy a beer off them, they're going to be given back. All the kickback is going to go right back to us.
Nice. No better way to kick back than to give back than to have a beer. So then there's a perfect example of
give back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. There's an example of giving and receiving. It's like you give and you receive a beer. That's perfect. I really love it. You've always done such a great job of, raising large amounts of money, because a lot of people aren't even able to, create events like this, like we do every year at Treehouse. Christmas night's our biggest night there, and we give all the proceeds to the Humane Society, and we raise like $2,000, which the Humane Society is super happy about. But at the same time, it's just like, man, this guy's over here raising $40,000, now on his way to raising $70,000. So it's an amazing event to take part in. If you know someone that's rowing in it, get out your checkbooks and give them some cash. For sure, I'll take that spot and row with you guys. Definitely, I would love to do that. But also, I would like to the Treehouse and Rise Up Rich will also put a donation in to the event. We'll donate $1,000. Wow. So yeah,
oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Definitely. We want to be involved, and Treehouse is all about giving back, and we do all kinds of things for the community as well. So we want to be in there as well. So segueing from that, this amazing event that's going to be happening. So make sure you check that out. Just remember, it's November 17th, right?
November 17th, WFCU,
Yeah.
Cruise and Brews. If you are by chance a gym owner or somebody who knows a gym owner, just because I didn't reach out to you doesn't mean we don't want you. It just, honest to God, I don't know everybody in this city.
Right.
So please feel free.
Where's Dave Orton on this one? Team Synergy. Did you reach out to him?
We'll reach out to him.
Yeah. What the hell?
Yeah.
Dave Orton.
Didn't do that.
Yeah.
So
Tony, we'll call him out on the podcast here.
Tony at thegaragegym.net. You better jump in, Dave. Now we're calling you out.
Yeah.
And reach out to me if that interests you at all. Or if you're just an advocate of fitness and you want to jump in, I'm sure we're going to have spots that need to be filled on that day.
Cool.
And I'll arrange for you to get on a team. It's open to all friends and family. The purpose isn't the win. The purpose is the cause, and all of us together standing beside each other, these gyms and breweries, that's how you get things done.
Definitely. I love it. So because Tony and I are here on the podcast, we're not just about promoting this event. The event's amazing, and I highly suggest everyone comes out to it and supports. But we also want to deliver like as much amount of value as we can to the people listening, And so for the next 10, 15 minutes here, Tony and I are just going to talk about something I think that a lot of people are really missing, and I know I was missing it for a really long time. And it's cancer plays a role in this, being that everything begins and ends in the body, and if the body is not in alignment, if you're not physically fit, if you're not eating the proper foods, if you're not emotionally fit, if you're not spiritually fit, then the body's going to begin to break down. And I always talk about this example of like, if you're driving your car down the highway at 100 miles an hour with your foot to the floor every single day, 24 hours a day, then eventually that car is going to break down. And ultimately, that's what you're doing if you're eating unhealthy, if you're not exercising properly, if you're holding on to guilt and regrets of the past traumas, you haven't figured out how to deal with those. If you're not finding time to quiet the mind and to stop the overthinking. You mentioned going to yoga. It's like great to just shut the thoughts off for a bit. But if you're not physically fit and emotionally fit and spiritually fit, then it could lead to illness. And ultimately my goal through Rise Up Rich is, because I believe that as you move up the level of consciousness, as you expand your awareness, that you become more resilient. You become more resilient to all these diseases. And the one message that I really, because I know so many people are listening to this podcast because they want to hear what Tony's saying, is that the one message I really want to push out there to people is that diseases aren't floating around like trying to come and get people. That's what people tend to think, is that these diseases are out there floating around, and there's all this fear that's created around them. But everything begins and ends in the body. So my goal of my own personal health, and what I try and teach people, is that you got to do everything that you can to make sure that your body is as resilient as possible. And that's what you're doing at the Garage Gym with health and fitness. But what I'm doing with Rise Up Rich is trying to make people emotionally and spiritually fit as well. So it's a whole package. And the more fit you are overall, the less likely you are to have the body break down or have that car break down. And for me, it all began with awareness around health and fitness. And that's, you're the first step for people. So maybe you can just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I'm not as deep as you, but the same. I have like a little bit of a comparison that we kind of like run at the gym, and the way I see things is that I'm the coach, and my body and my brain are the team. And you need a balanced team. You can't just have a bunch of guys who can only pitch but can't hit, right? You have to have all those different positions so that you can field the game and win. And that's what it's about. It's creating balance and making sure that you're putting time in where it all needs to be so that there's proper practice. And then when you actually get in the game, you can play and give yourself a chance to win. There's obviously unforeseen circumstances that could happen at any time to any one of us. You never know, and you can't control the things around you, but control what you can. So by taking care of your body, what you take into your body, and then your mind, I think that's one that gets hugely overlooked. It's something we spend a lot of time on in the gym, but not nearly enough time where that should be it. Do you know what I'm saying? So like you should, hopefully people who train with us are spending time, whether it's in meditation or just out for a quiet walk or,
getting back to nature or whatever.
Yeah, sitting in, in a Muskoka chair in your backyard. Like it doesn't have to be something so sophisticated as like we did a little meditation before we started this. Not that that's super sophisticated, but it doesn't have to be something so like out of your comfort zone. Just get comfortable and be quiet. Yeah. Turn that phone off. And one of those ways to happiness is just, I think to prelude into what we've worked on, what we plan to talk about a little bit, is just like identifying what makes you happy and building a fence around those things to protect them, to make sure that you can spend your time to do that.
Definitely. And I think one of the things, the major realization that I came to in my life was that, because for me, it was always about success and it was always about money. And, you can follow my content if you want to get more into my story. I'm not going to go into it here. But my whole life I was striving to try and be successful. And what I ultimately came to realize through the course of a bunch of realizations, one of them being the awareness around health and food, another one being around this give to get concept. But ultimately what it came down to is that happiness does not equal money, but it could be, and usually for me it was the other way around. Figure out how to become happy and everything else will work itself out. So a great tool because like when you hear that, I know a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, I'll be happy when I have $1 million, or I'll be happy when I get abs, or I'll be happy but it's like, stop placing your happiness in the future and learn to be present and figure out what makes you happy now. So before Tony and I met, I put it out to the universe, to God, because I want to deliver the most amount of value to the people listening. And I say like, how can we help people that are listening to this podcast, that are tuning in? And I think one of the greatest things that you can do, a great thing, is that you can just identify what actually makes you happy in this world, because we are projecting into the future. Once I get the bigger house, I'll be happy. We never actually stop to think what makes us happy right now. And once you identify what makes you happy right now, then you can choose to, like Tony says, put some walls up around it to make sure you protect it, but also just choose to experience, just to do those things more, just be around those things more, do those things more. And something amazing will happen to you if you're able to do this, is that all of those things that you're placing in the future, the abs, the car, the money, if you learn how to be happy now, those will flow into your life, and they'll flow into your life effortlessly. And I mean, that's the message behind Rise Up Rich. So what I asked Tony to do is this, let's make a list and let's go through them together. And this will be like a kind of like a working example for you guys to go home. And when you're done listening to this podcast, I encourage every single person to, turn it off and go get a pen and paper and write out like 10, 12 things that make you happy. And don't overthink this. Like, don't give the common answers that everyone thinks. It's like, just write out what comes to you, and that's what I did, and that's what Tony did. Tony said, hey, he didn't give me enough heads up for this, but he wrote them all out, and that's exactly, almost worked out perfectly. And if you want to talk about like guidance, I mean, that's perfect. It's like, I sent it to you and I didn't give him enough time to think about it. He just had to come up with them, and that's the kind of same that plays perfectly in this podcast. You shouldn't overthink this. That's the last thing I want you to do, overthink. Just write them out. So let's go, Tony, back and forth. And I know this one's on your list too, so we can talk a little bit. But obviously my wife and now my newborn baby, I mean, for sure, finding a mate it happened effortlessly for me. I dated all kinds of girls for a long, long time and just couldn't put it together. But once things started clicking and I got to this point where I was happy with who I was, it allowed me to attract the mate that I wanted. And for sure, that relationship and my newborn child, I mean, it's just like, there's just so much joy there. I mean, every time I look at that kid, I'm full of joy. So that's for sure for me, and I'm assuming for you as well.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. I mean, my family actually plays into 3 or 4 points on here without saying them directly. just as them as being one, but it's one of my big ones was Sunday morning breakfast, like with my family, my kids, my wife. Growing up, my dad worked shifts, and almost my whole life I worked shifts. So Sunday mornings were a big deal when we had those off. And it was always pancakes and, as my friends would say, Fran cakes.
Nice.
And it was always a place where we'd invite, and we still to this day, like, that's where we invite my in-laws over. We invite my parents over, and we make a huge breakfast.
Nice.
And traveling and those things, it all has to do with I want to spend time with my kids and my wife doing these things.
Definitely. For me, another one's my dogs. I freaking love those dogs, and they bring me joy every single day. Every single morning, I see those dogs, and I'm just like, oh, this make me so happy. And I recently, like a couple of years ago, I had one of my little Chihuahuas died, and my wife and I spent like $10,000 trying to like get that dog right, and people would like judge us, like, I can't believe you're spending $10,000 on a dog, and I was like, this dog brings me joy every single freaking day. It's like I could go on a vacation and have joy for a week with $10,000, or I can spend $10,000 on this dog who brings me joy every second of my life. So for sure, my dog is huge.
Me, I got one, and my whole like business is built around this: lifting weights with a good partner. I love training and working out hard, pressing, pushing the limits, getting on a rower or a skier and going hard, or just lifting some heavy weights with just good friends. And that's what the garage gym is. That's what we've built this whole community on, is where every day now I can walk in and there's one of 30 people that you can just do this with, because I truly do enjoy all of their company. And I think that's why we've gotten to be successful where we are. That's just one thing I've always loved, and that's one thing I'm going to continue to do.
Definitely. And that's funny that yours is mine. For me, I love sailing. I'm like an avid sailor. And I'm like, what do I love so much about sailing? And the funny thing that came up was like the friendship and the camaraderie and the conversations. Like after a race, like all my buddies, there's 8 crew members, and we all just sit around, we recap the race, and we talk about how we almost hit this boat, and how we almost lost control or whatever it may be. But it's just like a real conversation and doing an activity that we all really love, and we're on the water. So that friendship and that camaraderie and also like having real conversations with people. That's why I love doing this podcast, because we're not talking about fluff. Like we're not talking about how the weather is and all this. Like we're talking about real to the root, like who are you, Tony Smith? Like and getting to the root of it, and I get to know people better. And it's getting rid of all this surface level BS. Like I don't want to talk to you about recent events.
How's the weather?
Yeah, I don't want to talk to you about the news or Donald Trump. I don't give 2 shits what Donald Trump's doing. I don't watch the news. What I want to know is who you are as a person, and what makes you tick, and what can I learn from you, basically. So for sure, camaraderie.
Yeah, this one will ring home for you. For me, I love a good long dinner with my good friends. Like growing up, it was always like the Italian way. You bring out a bunch of courses one at a time, sit down between courses, have a drink. I guess basically everything on my list revolves around exercise, food, and friends, and family. So I love that. I love when we're just sitting around talking shit with my good buddies, the guys that we've grown up with. It's been, some of them since kindergarten, some of them since grade 9, 10. And it just keeps building, and that bond that we all have now with all of us having kids. And now we're bringing by our kids, and now you can join that in too. You can bring.
Finally, I'll be in the inner circle of the cottage party or whatever.
Everybody brings their kids, get them together on a Sunday, and we watch football. All the wives come, they hang out, drinks, have some food, and just make fun of each other.
That's basically what we do.
Build some thick skin, which helps you in everything in life.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, friendship is obviously huge for me. Tony and I are both lucky to have a real good circle of friends, a real group of great guys. So the next one on my list is helping people. I mean, obviously, I think I've driven this point home in the first 10 minutes of the podcast, but I just get such a rise and such a lift. I get so much out of it, and and it's funny because it's not about getting, it's about giving. But through giving, I just get so much. It's like it just fills me with a high and an energy for life that is undescribable. So for sure, it has to be on my list, like right up there with helping others.
Yeah, for me too. This one will knock off 2 points on my list. One of them was adrenaline. Man, I love adrenaline. Coming from where I've come from and jumping off of buildings and riding in helicopters and bashing down doors and have pit bulls biting at my legs and drug dealers running and, just the craziness. And the only thing that does that for me now is like helping other people. It just gives me that same rush of feeling when I'm giving it all at this, Cruise and Brews, and I'm up there on the microphone and encouraging people to go and getting them riled up. That is my adrenaline now. And so helping others is what replaces, that little more dangerous adrenaline that I used to get.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. The next one for me, and I'll combine two here too, just to shorten this up, but is like personal growth is huge for me. And I am like, if I feel like if I'm not growing, I'm not living, like I mentioned earlier, like I listen to a book a week in my car, and I'm at the gym, it's audiobooks in my ears. I just constantly, I crave learning. I'm addicted to it. I want to get my hands around every single thing I possibly can. And I'm going deeper and deeper than I ever have. And it's because of this passion to learn. But then also, one of the things I talk about in Rise Up Rich is don't mistake learning for action. It's great to have all this knowledge, but if you're not doing anything with it, it's useless. So being productive is another one. Like when I'm being productive and I'm actually doing something, I'm on a high. And I mean, a real stupid example of this the other day was like my garage is a mess, and I've been chipping away, cleaning this garage. The other day, it was a beautiful day and we didn't have anything going on, and I just did it all. And at the end of that day, I was like, man, I did it. Like I can park my car in my garage again, but it just felt so good. And every time I walk into that garage, I'm like, look what I did. And that's what I feel, that same energy around business and around helping people. When I see the results of the people that I'm coaching, I see them succeeding in life. I'm like, yes, like it's amazing. I'm doing something in this world, right? So that for sure has to be on my list of being happy.
Yeah, it's incredible what you can get from other people's accomplishments.
Yeah,
it's like you've come so far the other way from wanting to be the all-star or wanting the bat in your hand. So like now I just get so much out of watching somebody else hit what they want to do. We got some people training for a Tough Mudder right now, a Spartan race. And when those people cross that finish line, I see their pictures, I'm just gonna be so pumped. It's amazing what other people's accomplishments can bring to your life. So one for me, solitude, and that comes with reading. That comes from meditation. It comes from just going out for walks in my grandpa shoes, like I call them. Whatever it is, I need a little bit of solitude every single day. I've started to, I do a lot of reading just like you, but I've started to actually read just for fun again. So I'm picking up novels and I'm just reading a book. Nice. That's just going to entertain me and just let my mind wander and, not, because I find that all these, we do a lot of self-development, you and I, and you get so locked in on it that you're like in business mode, like, oh, how can I apply this? How can I apply this? And you kind of forget to the point of that reading is almost lost if it is for relaxation like mine is. So that and digital detox has been a huge one for us. I think I mentioned it last time I was on here, but we had our kids, they took a Nike Air box, they decorated it. It's called Mom and Dad's Phone Box. And on Sundays, my kids take that box and they put my phone in it.
That's
and Danny's phone in it. And then they get to hide it in their rooms. So if there's something somebody wants to take from this, it's amazing. And not having that phone with me on that Sunday from basically from kickoff until, morning is pretty incredible. So I definitely suggest that. Just have your kids decorate a box, make a little bed in it, be as corny as you want. Let them hide it, have fun with it. It's a big treat for them. They think they're so cool. Hide Mom and Dad's phones, and then we get them back later on.
Yeah, I love that. And it's about being in the present moment and actually experiencing the joy that exists in that present moment. And when you're constantly on your phone, it's it's really, really hard to do that. Another thing that's on my list is, there's two, and I'm just going to shorten this up. One is the same thing for me. Solitude is getting back to nature. I love being out in nature. I love running, and I'm there's nothing more meditative to me than going for a long run. It's just sometimes I don't even bring my headphones and listen to books. I just want to be not even with my own thoughts. I just want to get connected, and that's one that's on my list as well, as connecting to a higher power, connecting to infinite intelligence, connecting to the universe, connecting to God, if you want to call it that. But the closer I get to that, the more grounded I feel, the more aligned I feel with my true purpose. And that one's a little bit deeper, and it could be a whole podcast about that on its own. But that connection is so important to me. And, the further I go in my life, the harder I'm pursuing it, basically.
For me, one thing that really brings me happiness, it's really two things, I guess, but I try not to miss this every day. I try to take a second to look at the sunset and another second or minute or whatever to look at the sunrise every single day. And it's kind of like it has different meaning for you, resetting your day, a new day, new opportunities. However you want to look at it, it's just something about that just calms me. So, and I take pride. And I'm up before the sun, and I go to bed shortly after, and it keeps me, on an internal clock too, which is it's just something big and something healthy that I truly, truly appreciate, especially coming back from someone who is working swing shifts and terrible hours.
Yeah,
so that's something that truly brings me
Definitely,
happiness, is seeing both of those from the comfort of my home every day.
Yeah, for sure. My last one is impact. I mean, I know that I'm put on this earth to impact this world in some way, shape, or form. For me, it's through coaching and through events that I'm going to do, and really helping people learn how to deal with their emotions and connect at a deeper level, and heal. That's ultimately what I'm here to do. But that also includes like healing on financially, healing physically, healing mentally, healing emotionally, healing spiritually. It encompasses it all. But I know that I'm here to have an impact on this world, and if I feel like I'm not aligned with that purpose, of like impact, then everything begins to fall apart for me. So I need to have that I guess it's alignment. The alignment with having an impact is what it's about.
Yeah, my last one, I'm gonna call bullshit on you for not saying this, but I've talked about food, I've talked about drinks, I've talked about friends, family, the wife, the kids. The one thing is that before bed at nighttime, there's no phones, there's no TV in our room. There's one thing that's real important, and make sure that you do a lot of it, and that's what's gonna keep the relationship moving forward. It keeps everything happier. Yeah. It's just, your room is for two things. It's for sleeping and it's for sex, and I enjoy both of those. So I try to make the most.
That's kind of funny that I didn't have that on my list. That's good though. But you can just see the thing that I love about this list, and Tony and I this is the first time we read our list to each other, is that none of the things on this list are materialistic, really. None of them. I don't have Lamborghini on this list, or mansion, or $1 million in my bank, or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, it's all about connections and helping and camaraderie and growth. I mean, so when you really get a chance to look at this, and it's like, oh well, this is really easy to bring more of this into my life. Just eliminate the cell phone for a day. Yeah. And how much are you bringing? Eliminate watching the news at night, and not only is that going to help you in a million other ways, but it's like going to create more time so you can focus on these things that are bringing you real, true happiness. And again, the purpose of this list is because money does not equal happiness. Having the spouse does not equal happiness. Having the big house, having whatever it is that you think is going to be that thing in the future that brings you happiness, that's not the answer. The answer is get happy and it'll come.
Yeah, my wife and I, for you don't know the backstory, we gave up, both of us were cops for a very long time. Not rich by any means, but we're talking 6 figures, very comfortable, pensions, salaries, and all the healthcare that came with it. But the second we realized that we didn't need anything to be happy, we actually needed less to be happy. That's what that was the difference to us. And those things that I just listed off in that list, I mean, maybe not to the T, but basically those are the things that I completely protect. My whole life is built around making sure that those 10 things, give or take, some of them are combined, there's probably a couple missing, but those are the things that I am going to enjoy every week at the very least, if not every day. And Definitely. Pick those things out and, hammer them home, and then everything else just falls into place.
Yes. And I know it's hard for you to believe if you're not experiencing this, but to take it from two guys sitting across from each other, we were both full of piss and vinegar, 10, 15 years ago, angry at the world. And, we've come full circle. And a big part of it is this recognition of what actually makes us happy and making sure that we're getting more of what makes us happy into our lives. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, Tony. I think we delivered some amazing value there at the end. And again, I encourage you, turn this podcast off. To do two things. One, mark November 17th, WFCU. What time does it start at?
It's going to be 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. is the race. It's going to open at noon, and it's going to go till 5. The race will be 1 to 3, but noon to 5 there'll be an after party and awards ceremony.
Definitely.
After.
So 1 to 3. So mark that in the calendar. That's number one that I want you to do. And then number two is I want you to do this exercise that Tony and I just did for you. And figure out what it is that makes you happy and figure out how you can bring more of that into your life. So Tony, thanks for coming on again. Another amazing podcast, I think. I hope it delivers amazing value to everyone that was listening. And give us some feedback, like good or bad. Tony and I, we got thick skin because we grew up around a bunch of guys that just make fun of each other all the time. So give us good or bad feedback. We'd love to hear it. And we thank you for taking the time to listen. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.